Thank you. When I have done, okay, we're not doing that. We're going to see where we are. Yeah.
I'll get into my wife.
Yes, yes. Right, I see that.
Yeah, okay, that was yours. Now, the meeting, yeah.
Amazing, cool.
I think it's so cool. You like it that cool?
No.
Then say something, because I always do. And last time they had to give us better, this time it wasn't. I don't know, I could give us something. Wait for those, something.
No, but it's cool outside.
Okay, so it doesn't put it for you. Don't sell them.
So I had that. Then get to this year, even got one but last year. I said, I felt okay. That was big thing. I have a lot of smart and then what I got. My cousin, Asher, it appeared to be file. Whatever, you know, so instead I just let my get back to. So that listening to all those just not doing my body.
I should put on my jacket this morning.
Yes, I know, but I didn't take a sweater. Because every day in Florida is so weird.
You know what? We'll wait on that for a second. I don't know if we'll get to it today. Good morning. Excuse me, ladies. Good morning. Okay, we'll start with our bracha, and then we'll get on with our learning. How's that?
But this is great.
Now I know why Rabbi Yasser prefers the other Shem. Okay. What?
Put something in.
No, I got too many papers, that's the issue. Okay. They were like, I had a Rebbe in, when I went to, I wouldn't say yeshiva, but when I went to seminary, learning to my bonus, that he used to, certain things that he insists on, like don't recite things by heart. Okay, it's one of the things that we could always understand. Another one was you don't wear outside clothes inside when you come to daven. So, please. Right? I think I would know it, flip it right to the page. Right? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshenu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Okay, I would like us to start today, just before going into our text. I just want to review one thing, and then we'll jump on from there. Okay? I guess you're on, if anybody's watching. Okay. We talked last time about the fact that there were 10 what I'll call motifs that might be identified with, in common with the early and later rabbinic examples of the tzva'ot. And I'm not going to go through all those 10 again, but what I do want to take is a few minutes just once more to try to put into perspective where the concept or the genre of Mussar literature and ethical wills, what they have in somewhat in common and what they have unique. Okay? So we understand that while we're taking this as our specific topic, that if there are individuals who feel that they would like on their own to expand their familiarity with the Jewish ethical literature, with Mussar, I'm going to include some of the more famous books. Some of them you may have heard of. Some of them you may not be as familiar with. From this, we didn't give anything from last time?
Is that what you can work with?
Not yet. Okay. Okay. So, okay, so what's our focus then? Okay? Our focus may be on ethical wills. Okay? And we said that we want to consider them as one variety of Jewish ethical teaching. Okay? On the one hand, it has a particular literary purpose, okay? And its expression of not only trying to convey ethical values, which we said was primarily family or to a community, okay? But also it's significant because of the fact that this genre of literature in general, although we have some reflections from early rabbinic times, was primarily a medieval genre of literature. Okay? It developed in Germany, in France, excuse me, and Spain, primarily from the 11th to the 13th centuries. And really, by my giving you that piece from the piece of article that I shared at the very first session and sort of gave you as homework, okay, was to tell us that it really has continued in a sense even up to today. Okay? For the ethical will, it's usually on the shorter side, okay, concise, okay, main principles of moral behavior are expressed primarily by a father, although we will see one, if not today, next time, okay, from a mother, okay? And also it's primarily geared to children, although we said rabbinic varieties may be focused on the community as well. It may be that some academicians want to say that the concept of a will is more of a cliche kind of thing, as opposed to distinguish it from, let's say, a book or a pamphlet or something of that nature that also were varieties of of the Jewish literature. Just to give you a quick example, I had to give the Shabbos afternoon shiur a week or two ago, and I pointed out to people that someone wrote a kuntras. Okay, I don't know how many of us are familiar with that term. Okay, but a kuntras is a document. Okay, it's not a book. Okay, but it's not just a 1 or 2 page response. Okay, it's something sort of, I don't want to say nishta here, nishta here. Okay, but nevertheless, the point is, it is a kind of document. Okay, on a topic. Okay? So so the will is not this kind of treatise or kuntras, okay, nor is it a book, okay, and basically the authors may very well have been the individual who wrote it, but there are occasionally situations where someone in a more modern times, say the end of the 12th, beginning of the 13th century, could have decided, well, I'm going to write it as if I were, okay? So think of, for example, if somebody today sat down and said, I'm going to write like I'm Mark Twain, okay? And I'm on the riverboat on the Mississippi, okay? And as I see what's going on with the country then, and the problems of the country, and the need to, what kind of morals lead to that kind of an approach, is what some argue can be found in some of the wills as well. Okay. One thing that is common to almost all of the ethical literature is the fact that one perceives, and that's why I use the example as I did of Mark Twain, one perceives problems with the society, either from his own family or from the community, and therefore wants to suggest, shouldn't do what you're doing, behave in a different manner, give a different viewpoint, right? So it's not really what we would call a theological document. It's not a philosophical document. But in essence, it's like you're taking anthropology and psychology and philosophy, okay, all of these things, and spirituality, and okay, sort of pushing it all together, okay, in one kind of document. Well, we're going to see that, I think, a little bit today when we look at one example that I'm not going to have us read all the way through, but just excerpts, so we can pick out pieces. Okay. So I think it's important also, again, that we convey the idea that the literary style, again, is important. Okay. Again, we're not going to get a lot of philosophy, a lot of theology here, as we will get statements that comes and reflects ethical literature, whether it's Ethics of the Fathers, whether it's Talmud, whether it's other kinds of sources like from Mishlei, all of those examples. Okay, so I do, as I say, want to briefly mention that the broader topic of Musar, of ethical literature, could be divided into 3 or 4 categories. One would be philosophical, one would be rabbinic, one would be what we will call for the moment Ashkenazic, which really reflects the German Hasidic approach, and one is Kabbalistic. So I'm going to finish up this comparison a little bit with the fact that name some of the more familiar books, and then we're going to look at, again, our text, at least for today. Some of us have ever heard, I hope, of the book called Chovos Levavos, Duties of the Heart. Okay? That's by Bachya Ibn Pakuda. Okay, that is probably one of the more familiar books because in many, many yeshiva is the preparation for your shiur in the morning with the whoever's going to give the shiur, they have you study that for a half hour. So it's the warm-up act, okay, to get to the Gemara. Okay. Okay. Another one is called Sefer Hayira, the book of awe, right, by Rabbi Jonah Gerandi. He also wrote another one called Sha'arei Teshuvah, the Gates of Repentance. We have another example, Menorat HaMaor. Okay. Actually, there are two versions of Menorat HaMaor. Okay, one by Israel Al-Makawa and the other by Isaac Abu Ab. But those are already more Kabbalistic oriented. Okay. Sefer HaChasidim by Judah ben Samuel HaChassid is an example from the Hasidei Ashkenaz time period. Okay, again, remember all of what was going on in Sfat, okay, in that period? Well, we have an example of that Kabbalistic approach, Tomer Devorah by Moshe ben Yaakov Cordovero. Elijah de Vidas, who was a student again of Kabbalah, Reshit Chachma, the beginning of wisdom. Then we get a very interesting example, which I would suggest may be, if we want to call it modern Musa literature, okay? Modern in terms of we're talking 17th century in Jewish history, okay? That is Mesilat Yesharim, okay, by Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. So usually, sorry, it's the Luzzatto text. People study that individually, they study it in groups, okay? Then we get two others that I just want to mention quickly, and people might be surprised that we would put them in the same context of Musa literature. One is called Sefer Hamidot, okay, and that's by Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav. And the other is called the Tanya, which is known by the author Shneir Zalman of Ladi. So we have this flow, if you will, of Musa literature that has continued, okay? Principally, a lot of it might be considered Agadah, okay? Literature in the form of stories, of folk tales, sometimes jokes, okay? Things like that. Okay? And the implication is that in that context, it's not geared to the what's called intellectual elite, although that doesn't mean they don't study it, but it's geared to Amcha, geared to the general population, who would tend to perhaps not have the more advanced yeshiva education, okay, but nevertheless would appreciate the stories, okay, and learn from them. So we always keep in mind that, remember, if we were to be studying Midrash, okay, we would need to keep in mind that Midrash is more than just a nice story to fill in the blanks, okay, when we have questions of what something goes on in the Torah, but it really has educational and moral value as well. So we're going to look now, if you have your handout, at parts of the example of the Asheri. All right, Testament of Judah. Is there somebody that needs that? Okay. All right. It would. Okay. It is called Testament of Judah Asheri. It says 163. Okay. I have. I have. I just have one. There's more in the back. Okay.
Six starts on the other side.
Okay, it's probably about 6 or 7 pages here.
No?
All right, I'm just, as I said, I want us to use this example. And we're not going to read it all the way through because it is actually a rather long text. I'm going to sort of point out sections that we're going to look at. Okay, and in doing so, I don't. All right. Okay, if you can share with somebody, that would be helpful. Okay. If you'll turn with me the page, I'm going to announce, let's go to the second page that says 164 on the top. Okay, this is still part of the introduction that Israel Abrahams wrote to clarify. Now, you might ask me, who's this Judah ben Asheri, Rabbi Greene? Why did you choose him? Right? I mean, was he some famous individual? No, but his father was famous. Okay? And therefore, from his father, he's important too. And his brother. Has anyone ever heard of the Rosh? Okay? When you study Gemara, okay, Rabbi, right? All right, Rosh, okay? So that was his father. His brother, okay, happened to be an individual that was fairly important. Anybody ever hear of the tour? Okay, that was his brother. Okay?
Wonderful.
Okay. Right? So in other words, we understand that this was not your average Jewish family. Okay? So one of the things I want us to appreciate as we go, as I say, we're not going to read the whole thing straight through. I'm going to just pull out areas, is the fact that we're not only going to get an ethical message, but we're going to get some historical, okay, elements about Jewish life, okay, in that time period, right? And Jewish issues at that time period. Okay? Right. So he points out at the outset, he was born 1250, migrated to Spain, where he eventually died in 1327, 1328. So we have a time frame. Okay. So page, I'll do a little reading myself. On the top of 164, apart from its ethical aspects, Judah's will has great historical value. The author's naive delight in legendary lore is characteristic of his age. But on the other hand, his more famous brother, Jacob, author of the Turim, okay, and remember the Torah is the text from which Shulchan Aruch is based, okay, very pointedly disparages a belief in omens or dreams. Skipping down a little bit in the same paragraph, Judah writes at the transition period, when the rabbi was passing out of the category of voluntary to salaried official. Okay? Judah throws a genial light on the new condition. We're not going to read about that section. It's not. And at the end of the paragraph, finally, Judah's remarks on family intermarriages have considerable importance for the social life of the Jews in the 14th century. All right. So will somebody like to pick up and start reading? All right, anything?
A saint once indited a testament and admonition of his sons, bidding them keep the way of God his master. He thus exhorted them not because they were worse than their contemporaries, but because he desired to direct them into the paths of the ancients. They are called friends of God when they imitate the deeds of their fathers. With this example in view, I said, better is open rebuke than love that is hidden.
Okay, I can imagine any one of us telling that to our kids. Okay, all right, would you really tell them that? Okay, not that you're bad, but, okay? Okay, let's turn now to a couple of pages to the one that's marked 166. Right, so he's telling about his own background. He's addressing this to his family, but it's very biographical. And I want us to get some insight. Okay, now remember we just said that his father was a famous Rav, okay? But as the will tell us, his father was forced to leave his native area, which was part of Germany, and move to Spain. Okay, that's a greater move than going from New York to Boca Raton. Okay, clearly for two reasons. Number one, in the German yeshivas, they learned material differently than they did in the Spanish yeshiva. Okay? Number two, okay, it's a whole different language. And it implies what? You had Ashkenazic custom, and then suddenly moving to Sephardic custom. Okay, so it's a major difference. So that's one of the reasons, but just as an aside, why it's important to understand that when the Rosh gives certain halachic material in the Gemara, okay, and the Tur himself as well later, he will say, and as my father would decide, okay? So in other words, it's a very unique transitional situation, okay? The only other time that I would say, you don't usually find that where somebody is presenting both Ashkenazic and Sephardic practices by the same person until you have halachic texts in Israel today, okay? Where you do have major poskim who will indicate that situation. Okay? Yeah.
So from Germany to Spain, is that during the Crusades? Is that what?
He's going to tell us in a little bit, okay? And he'll tell us why. Okay, we're on 166, the middle of the paragraph. The middle paragraph.
Henceforth?
Yeah.
Henceforward, I studied the tractates which my lord and my father taught in the college as far as my capacity went, and without intricate discussion. When I was about 13, he took me from the land of persecution and hurled me up and down with a man's throw. I left the German method of study without entering on that of France. For exile confuses the intellect, and I was able neither to write nor speak their language nor understand their books. Moreover, I could not pore over my books day and night because of my weak eyesight. For this reason, I could not write books nor compile treatises.
Okay, so we begin to see this whole situation. They left Germany because of persecution. Okay, very clearly, it wasn't a voluntary situation. Okay, why don't you? Okay, let's go to the next page.
What year was that?
Let's see if we can. I don't have it exactly.
1285.
That's probably
The reading 1285
Yeah.
Judah's migration to Toledo must be
Oh,
amended
from
to
the-
1305,
Uh-huh.
so something like that. 1285 or 1305.
right. So they move now to the Spain, where his father is going to become the rabbi of the community. Okay. Now, in and of itself, we should be a little surprised that a Sephardic community would choose an Ashkenazic authority to suddenly make him the chief rabbi of the city. Okay, right? But again, that's a sense, it tells us to what degree his father was held in such high esteem. All right, we're about the next page, about halfway down where it says 23 years later.
What number?
Okay, it's on 167.
How did we get his cut off?
Yes, I'm unfortunate.
Okay.
Do the best you can.
23 years later, my father, I don't know,
Just
though there were in the city men greater and wiser than I, the Lord, be his name blessed, inclined unto me grace and favor in the eyes of the inhabitants, and they installed me in my father's seat.
Okay, so here he's telling us he's not the greatest scholar, but nevertheless, he was the one who became, after his father, okay, the chief rabbi of the city. Right? Again, that tells you he's, no, nicht schwach, as we say. Okay, go ahead.
But I had no experience fitting me such an honor. My scholarship was not enough for such an office. I was a foreigner of no account, with altogether insignificant attainments, who could find no quality in me.
Okay, so in other words, he's also fairly, modest. Right? Let's jump to the next page, 168. Okay? Since he started off with indicating that he was directing this towards his children, what does he tell us in 168?
Likewise, my desire for children was not due to my love for them, nor expectation of pride in them. My desire was to convey the divine precept and to raise up offspring to fill my father's place in study and righteousness. For this, I often prayed at the graves of the perfect and upright. God, in his mercy, gave me 5 sons, and I considered myself to them as a live man among my people and brethren.
Okay, so he's then going to tell us that unfortunately there was a situation and the middle son died. Okay? So he suffered as well. The family suffered situations. Okay, but his goal was to continue the learning established by his father. Next page on 169. Again, he's coming back to tell us a little bit about his vision problems, now because of the weakness.
Now, because of the weakness of my eyesight, my father and mother left me to do whatever was right in my own eyes. They never punished or rebuked me. Wherefore, I have never been one to chide others, for they taught me not how, but even my own sons I knew not how to reprove. If they reprove not themselves, they will receive no reproof from me, nor have I the face to admonish them by word of mouth, lest I put them to the blush, embarrassment, even though evil unto me was the evil of their ways.
Okay, so again, he wasn't a big disciplinarian in terms of his own family, implying that who was in a sense, the one who ruled the house? His wife. She had to be the one primarily focused on giving the children the kind of moral but here he's still talking to them. Again, a very interesting picture, okay, of what's going on, so to speak, behind the scenes. Next, but now my heart.
But now my heart has impelled me to write for them this letter of admonition, conveying a discipline. I command them to read it carefully once a month, that the Lord may renew a clean heart and a steadfast spirit within them. Perhaps they will bend and listen to my voice, so that I may speedily bring salvation unto them. Now stand ye still, that I may plead with you. Why walk ye not in your father's way, nor hold the fear of God ever before your eyes? In his law you meditate not continually day and night, nor do you go morning and evening to your houses of prayer.
Okay, so what is he complaining?
Wow.
What?
They're not coming.
Right.
Well, they're
In
not
other words,
following the father's
they're-
footsteps.
Exactly, they're not, right? That doesn't mean they went off the derech, by the way, okay? But he expected them, they're not assiduous in their studies. They're not they're not showing up all the time, morning and evening in shul, okay, for davening, things like that. Again, an interesting perspective of what's going on.
Maybe he waited too long to review them.
Maybe he did, okay? All right, let's go on a little bit.
Wow. This is amazing. Oh, wow.
Okay, does it continue from where? In his law, right? All your
In
study?
his law,
Yeah.
all your study is below the standard. And when the law is discussed, you are as the
170.
stone and open not your lips. You associate with those who are unfit to be your companions, for it is unseemly that their ways should be yours. Again, ye honor not your mother and your father. Your conduct is disrespectful in their presence.
Okay, no.
Oh, boy.
Okay. All right, can you imagine sitting down and telling that to your own kids? Okay, and by the way, notice, right? Notice he mentions both father and mother.
Yeah.
Okay? But what?
This goes against how can you say you should not honor your father and mother?
No, he's saying your behavior doesn't show that respect. In other words, you're not
You're not doing what you're supposed to.
right. You know, the guys you hang out with, you know, they're the street corner guys. Okay? Next page, 171, about 4 lines down on the top, on 171 in the top, make the Torah. Want to just read a little more? And then
Sure. Make the Torah your main object. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth while you are still in vigor, and take upon you the yoke of the Torah. Let not the law depart from your mouth. Act always with the motive to please God.
Okay, all right, so again, he's trying to give them clear behaviors. He's going to continue that in the next paragraph. Okay, on this page, same page, go about 6 or 7 lines down in the paragraph.
Not to eat or incense.
Why forsooth?
Why, forsooth, were you brought into this world, not to eat and drink and wear fine linen and embroideries, but for the service of the God who hangeth the earth over nothing? And since his wisdom has ordained that the body cannot be sustained without food and raiment, he permitted man to eat, drink, and clothe himself for the sustenance of the body, that body and soul might be associated to perform God's behests, so long as their association continued. Food to a man is like oil to a lamp. If it have much, it shines; if little, it is quenched. Yet sooner is the lamp extinguished by redundancy than deficiency of oil.
Okay, so what we're seeing here,
Yes.
okay, he's saying, what are you guys concerned with? Dressing up in the latest styles? Okay, looking good, feeding yourself? Is this what, okay, again, modesty and at the same time a clear message. Let's go to 172. Second paragraph on the page. Okay, I'm going to give you a list. Somebody else like to read. Okay? No volunteer, thank you.
Ever let the fear of God be before you, and accustom yourselves to recite with devotion, that it depart not from your mouth, the text. I have set the Lord always before me. Surely he is at my right hand. I shall not be moved. Keep your minds always alert on whatever may induce the fear of heaven. Be not diverted by the jibes of others, nor by your own lusts.
So again, he's trying to tell them that citing a pasuk, a verse from Tehillim, okay, and then keep that in mind. Recognize that your behavior reflects these kinds of your behavior reflects your attitude towards Hashem. Top of 173. Okay.
Read ye therefore every rule, halacha, 101 times, and appoint hours for studying halacha from the codifiers every day, and also strive to read a tractate with Rashi's commentary.
Okay, so what is he telling them that they should be studying? Not just Torah. You're right. Okay, studying halacha with commentaries. And it could be that he wants them to study the Gemara with Rashi's commentary. Okay, so again, he's trying to tell them this is what you should be doing instead of hanging out at the local gym, for example. All right? Okay. Continue.
In fine, you must consider yourselves as laborers, hired by the day to do the work of God. As it is said in the Talmud, we are day laborers.
Okay, let's skip to the next paragraph. Think not.
Think not in your heart that the Torah is an inheritance from your fathers and needs no personal effort to win it. The matter is not so. If you toil not therein, you shall not acquire, and more than ordinary will be your punishment, in that you forsake your family tradition.
Okay, so in other words, don't think just because the family has a history of knowledge of Torah that you're going to get it, absorb it, genetically, kind of thing. You want to, okay, you need to put the time and the effort in Torah study. Okay? Let's go to the next page, 174.
Actually, I like this next thing he said is very interesting. Why do not learned fathers invariably beget learned children, so that people shall not say your Torah is inherited from your fathers? It's very interesting and very relevant to today.
Okay, next, so we've already seen that he wants them to study halacha, wants them to study Talmud with Rashi, and now he's going to go also into more detail on 174. Start with the paragraph also appoint.
Also appoint regular periods for studying the Bible with grammar and commentary. As in my childhood, I did not so study it, for in Germany, they had not the custom.
Okay, notice again, we said, remember the learning in Germany was different than the ones in Spain. So it implies that there was much more significance, or let's say within the context of the yeshiva world of Spain, in terms of Torah study and Torah commentary. Think for a moment, okay, we won't go into detail, but how many Mefarshim can we think of that came associated with the more, what we'll call the Spanish approach, as opposed to the Ashkenazic approach? Right? We could probably name quite a few. Okay, Lusato's already Italian. That's a little bit later. Okay, but think of Ibn Ezra. Okay, think of right as an example. Okay, right, and others, Ramban, even to some degree. Okay? So all I'm saying is again, he's bringing this out to us, which is a significant historical comment to tell us that in the German schools, okay, the emphasis was Gemara, 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 halacha, halacha, halacha. In the Spanish schools, yes, you needed to learn that, but you also needed to learn the Torah and Torah commentary. Okay, let's go on. Sarah, would you continue?
Where we left off.
Yeah. Also make yourselves familiar after Rashi and other commentary. It's about
But I read weekly.
read weekly, right? Go ahead.
Read weekly the Pentateuchal lessons with Rashi and other commentaries. Also make yourselves familiar with homilies and midrashim. This will make you more effective in public preaching and to bring men back from
Iniquity.
iniquity.
Okay, last paragraph. discourse.
This last time, discourse the matters of Torah at your meals. Then will you be as those who eat at the table of the omnipresent. Read regularly in the duties of the heart and in the book of the upright.
Okay, those are the texts that I just I mentioned earlier, the actual books of Musa. Right?
And the epistle on repentance of Rabbeinu Yonah.
Yeah.
And similar books.
Okay, so in other words, he's now saying, what do I expect of you in terms of your education? Okay, not only halacha, not only Gemara, not only Chumash and commentaries, but also reading Musa. Okay, and you can see then that he's really giving them a real shloch, in a sense, a real push as to what they should be learning, which is significant because what has happened, okay, is he's telling them that he has adopted the broader view of the Sephardic yeshiva community as opposed to the more, excuse the expression, narrower view of the Ashkenazic approach. All right, let's go middle of 175. Right? Your whole endeavor
would be to word your speech acceptably, and you would think of nothing else. How much more should this be your method before the King of Kings? Blessed and sanctified be his name. Pray with the congregation in the same place and in the same context. See that you are among the first. Discontinue your present habit of departing because the lesson is over, thus failing to pray where the congregation is collected.
I hate to say, but I always think that at some point on Shabbos morning, when you look around, and I direct this to the men particularly, all of a sudden it's like you finish full Kaddish. Oh, I can start taking off my tallis and things like that, etc., etc. Davening isn't over at that point. Okay, that's what he's really saying to us. Go ahead. Go
Never
continue.
speak from the passage. Blessed is he who spake until you have ended the 18 benedictions.
Be careful. Take your time when you say the Shemona Esrei. Okay.
Be silent too while the Chazan repeats the last name prayer.
Yeah, don't talk while the Chazan is doing the repetition of the Shemona Esrei. Basically, okay?
If there be not 10 attentive to it, the repetition is not according to the law.
He sneaks in a little halacha there too, please. All right, let's go on. We're going to skip a little bit now. He talks about don't be among liars, don't be among hypocrites. Go to page 177. 3/4 of the way down the page.
Avoid pride.
Yeah.
Avoid pride, for everyone that is proud in the heart is an abomination to the Lord. Majesty indeed is the garment of God alone, and he that makes use of the crown shall perish. As a certain sage said, how can a man be proud considering the way in which he was conceived and born? But cleave to humility, that best of good qualities. For this virtue, Moses, our master, was praised, as it is said, now the man Moses was very meek.
Okay, let's.
It's not enough. Allah is humble.
I think you're right, but what he wants to convey is a certain perspective to carry out that. He then goes into history about the whole business of getting paid and how he thought to leave the congregation where he was. But but they convinced him to stay by deciding after 10 years to start giving him a salary. Let's go to page 183. Okay, he again repeats his whole point about the reason for children, okay, things like that, okay, and deals with that. And let's jump now to 184. And again, I want to point out to what degree he's talking to his family, and again reflects the history of the time period, right? As well. By the way, anybody who's interested in shidduchim should know that there was a piece this week that a child of the chief rabbi of Russia married a child of the chief rabbi of the Ukraine. Lvov, yeah. Okay. Okay, so that, I don't know if you consider that intermarriage.
Nowadays?
What?
Nowadays?
This week.
Unusual.
This week, they got married in Jerusalem.
They had to get married.
Where did they
because
get
They couldn't
married?
hold the wedding at either of the places.
I wouldn't either.
Where did the wedding take
In
place?
Jerusalem.
Oh,
Okay, top of, okay, again, top of 184. All right, Sarah,
Lord of the universe,
yeah,
that sittest on the throne of mercy, it is revealed and known before thee that
all my desire.
all my desire for children was not out of my love for them, nor to gain honor through them, but only to perform that duty of continuing the race which thou hast ordained.
Fulfill the mitzvah, Peru Urvu, is saying.
May it be thy will to order us in all our affairs in good counsel before thee.
Okay, just jump to the next paragraph.
Of the good methods which I desired for maintaining family record was the marriage of my sons to members of my father's house.
No, they married either their cousins, their nieces, things like that.
I had many reasons for this. First, it is a fair and something thing to join the fruit of vine to fruit of vine. It is indeed an important duty, for as our sages said, he who loves his relatives, he who marries his sister's daughter, and he who lends to the poor in the hour of his distress, to him applies the text, then shalt thou call, and the Lord will answer. Thou shalt cry, and he will try, and he will
Say,
say, here I am. Furthermore, the women of our family have grown accustomed to the ways
of students.
and the love of the Torah has entered their hearts, so that they are a help to their husbands and in their scholarly pursuits. Moreover, they are not used to extravagant expenditure. They do not demand luxuries, the provision of which disturbs a man from his studies. Then again, children, for the most part, resemble the mother's family.
By the way, that is a clear statement taken right out of the Gemara. Okay? In other words, if you want to see if you're interested in knowing how your children are going to look like, look at the brothers of the woman that you intend to marry.
Finally, if with changing times a man sees fit to seek his livelihood in another city, there will be none to place obstacles in the way of the wife accompanying her husband.
Okay. So again, notice he's concerned about okay, we're going to finish up at this point. I know we're reaching our time. So I just want us to just to point out one more item. Okay. On page 188, he talks about his family life, okay, and things like that. And the son that passed away. Then he goes on, and this is the one point I wanted to clarify on 189. The cause of my father's departure from Germany was due to the imprisonment of Rabbi Meir of Rothenburg, of blessed memory. The Count, then head of the government, arrested him, and the congregation of Germany ransomed him for a considerable sum. Governor refused to accept, etc., etc. Okay, so here's a clear historical fact as to why the Rosh had to flee Germany and go to Spain because of clearly persecution. Right? He goes into quite a number of other things. 190, he talks about raising up disciples on the Spanish soil and things like that. So as we finish up for today, okay, on 191, right? As middle of the page. As for me, my prayer is made before the Lord of the universe, that he may requite with a good recompense this holy congregation for their labors, and for all the good which they as a body and as individuals have done unto me, etc., etc. So in other words, part of it does tell us that indeed his remarks are not just, well, directed primarily at the family, okay, nevertheless, clearly are important for the community as well. So next week, okay, when we'll continue, okay, to what I'll call from medieval to modern times, we're going to look again at a number of, as I said, fortunately I killed a lot of trees.
Yeah.
Okay, and a few more. All right? Everybody have a good week.
Thank you.
Got more?
So do we know what happened to his children? He just.
That's
Good to see you, Ryan.
That's gonna be next week.
Yeah.
Do you have this? Do you have records? Do you have the preschool?
I don't have any.
Is it from the very?
So we don't know anything about that. Yeah. What was the result of his speech to his kids, right?
Became accepted as the rabbi.
Do we know what?
The ones who are gonna be next year. The answer of
It's gonna be Saturday and Sunday, we'll be 72, 73, 75.
When we saw it was wings, like, I didn't know, like, when
I mean, they're warm about it.
we got one word that we were in Pico.
I like San Diego, 75 and Miami. The sun is shining, all you need to keep
So we were on. Yeah. Maybe there's.
My wife is going to the Bronx, that's very interesting. It's been like 18 degrees. We're sleeping.
Yeah. And.
I think that's an ethical one. Question is, do they really, or do they tell them?
The current material.
Yes.
You think what? I just thought
Very comfortable.
it's the same concept. Right. What you're saying. I mean, execution. Yeah, they just moved from New York 2.5 years ago, so it's still happening. And luckily, it's been one more trip and then. Wait, my technology. Sounds like country. I have a 10-year-old, I have 2 kids are 27, 25. Well, we take care of my own. We have 8 at home here, but I.
Didn't record. Didn't really record everything.
Okay.
Saturday, we said, we have a late Saturday.
A lot of the flights from all the day flights are canceled. I know it. You're lucky you got out.
We celebrated when somebody in my suit is 100 years old on Saturday. It's a big
Work and get back on Friday. Yeah. That's right. No idea.
Staple shoppers, right?
I had my house when I went to, I called her my friend and I had gone out to dinner with her, Thursday night. She said, I really missed you. So I called her up after the flight and I said, missed her too much. I already heard you want to call me. You all come to this shop. My husband is here. Just gonna get okay. I don't know what food. It's a it's a one chair. Now you have a chair. What was it? I have no idea. You bought me.
No.
You gave me 2 planes. You bought me the camera. It's $10. Your kids say. It's number 7. I understand, I don't have to say this to me. You're welcome.
What do you speak aside?
Yes, yes, no, they pass the shop.
Everybody's on fire, going to the people.
If I call it. No, I can't. Do you have to buy? I'm telling you.
Marshall here.
Catch one up in the back.
We're going to match the Israeli.
She does.
There's 250 people more.
Are you going? Are you going?
Maybe, my wife is out of town, and I have to take care of my mother-in-law, so I'm,
Venga, pero no me capítulo.
remember. But I'm here, I'm ready to stand by.
Are you stand by?
Io sono il non perché
How about me coming here?
Okay, perfect.
Everybody got the papers from?
I think there was, I had like one extra.
Here.
Okay, so, I'm going to start. So as always, I, dedicate my share, for the safe return of the hostages. I'm so sorry, I don't have any more, but maybe you could go on with someone.
Want me to make copies?
If you asked Andrea if she could, maybe make a couple more copies.
Only on certain pages.
We're on set 4.
Thank you.
Thank
No,
you.
I'm saying part of set 4, you don't need the whole thing. We started 8, she has it.
But if she starts, Andrea, are you able to make, here's Andrea, are you able to make copies, start of, set 4, like a couple more copies?
Oh, don't ask Saya, I'll do it. Yeah,
Starting at page 10.
just one page?
No, well, it's pages,
That's the problem.
oh, sorry, for the
Can I
sources.
just make the whole thing?
What are we interested?
No, it's for this, I'm looking at the, sorry, it would be pages 7 to 23. Yeah.
I want one here.
It might be easier for her just to do the whole thing. Okay, anyway, so I dedicate this year to the safe return of the hostages. Thank God 3 more came home, the rest should come home quickly and healthily and safely. The safety of the IDF in this past week was a miracle of sorts. No soldiers were killed. So that should just continue to the safety of the Eden everywhere. We shouldn't hear about any more people being